Hi. I'd like to talk about design by subtraction, and I'd like to posit maybe a case study or a hypothetical. Now, there have been a lot of videos that talk about design by subtraction both in and out of video games. My personal favorite is Game Maker's Toolkit video on ICO. I would highly recommend watching that to get an overall idea of what that means, particularly within games. But I'm going to go ahead and present a proposition that No Man's Sky, as it is at launch, so that's version 1.0.3, could be improved by taking away an element out of the game. The element that I'm proposing is the Atlas Pass. Now, this stems from my base mentality that there are basically going to be three types of people playing this game. There are the kind that Sean Murray is envisioning, which are the intrepid explorers who are basically just going out to different planets to see the planets and the creatures and really just taking in the sights, and everything else is something along the way. This is great, but I don't think that this is going to be the majority of players. And I think that for anyone kind of coming into it with a bit of an open mind, that playstyle gets detracted a little bit by the fact that the main storylines and courses of the game are presented to you right there on the starting planet. There's going to be a few spoilers in what I'm saying here. Technically, revealing anything about the game's kind of a spoiler based on how they present it, but whatever. Yeah, it's happening. Anyway, on the starting planet, you're presented almost immediately with the Atlas thing that presents you with the Atlas path. But you're also presented with items locked behind an Atlas pass, which is, discernible as a key of some kind that's needed to get through these things. Now, I think it's minimal spoilers to say that what's on the other side of anything requiring an Atlas pass is just more items, more stuff for you to have. You're not really being locked out of anything, but until you get the Atlas pass, it's kind of hard to discern that. You can, I was noticing scanning on the other side of doors that are locked against an Atlas Pass version 2 or 3. You can see that there's pickups and collectibles over there, and, kind of associating it with the rest of the way that the game works. Oh, okay, there's collectibles over there. They're probably along the same lines as the collectibles I'm getting now. Maybe better, maybe some unique items, but the stuff that actually does the things is all of the patterns and schematics and things like that you get all of the ways that you would normally do that. And there may be accessors to new patterns and new schematics, and maybe some of the highest or highest quality patterns in the game are behind those doors, maybe. But it's not locking you out from things like the hyperdrive upgrades that you can find in various places that really actually add additional ability to the player, functionality to the game. Part of the reason why I think it's problematic is that the idea of a locked door raises a question of how the player gets the key and gets around it. And at least in my experience, and major spoilers here, following the Atlas path for a while to try to find an Atlas pass didn't yield an Atlas pass. It actually yielded a different avenue by which I was able to get an Atlas pass, and from what I've been reading and spoiling the game for myself online, that's how other people got the version 1, but the version 2 and version 3 came from the manufacturing plants that you get every other kind of menial pattern for. Which is really, part of it is the naming, right? It's a misnomer. And I get it, like, if it has something to do with the Corvics or whatever, the machine people, they're, pretty strong followers of the whole Atlas thing, and maybe they're the ones that set up all that stuff, all the Atlas doors and whatever, so never mind that those show up in Vikine or Gex stations, but whatever. The idea of an Atlas pass having something to do with the Atlas path, unless there are things revealed much later on in the path that I'm just not seeing or haven't seen. But Also, the fact that you can get an Atlas Pass other ways, which I get, like, there's kind of, black market ways of doing things, or off the beaten path or off the road, and that's part of the point and all of that, but it implies, the way I read it was, follow the Atlas path, you get the Atlas Pass, you get to see what's in these containers and ultimately what's on the other side of these doors that exist in every space station. But that didn't really turn out to be the case. The problem that I have with that is, for the adventurer who's just going to go around and explore the planet, explore the galaxy, the universe, that seems a little bit distracting to give them a vector, right? The idea, the way that the Atlas presents itself, in the beginning and by its means or whatever, as kind of like, oh yeah, you're going to follow me and whatever, right? Like, it reads very much like, okay, that's the beaten path, and if you're going to really follow the game true to the game, then you want to move away from the beaten path. And it's nice that there's motivation to, sort of almost by misdirection say, hey, go over here, except don't, go explore. But then you explore, and everywhere has doors locked by these Atlas passes. So I at least was inexorably drawn to the Atlas path to go try to unlock those doors, because even if I didn't want to follow it all the way to completion, I wanted to see what was on the other side of those doors, which put me in the second form of player, which I think is actually the most popular, and that's someone, well, no, maybe not even the most popular. The second form of player being someone who, plays a game like Fallout by doing a bunch of the mini quests first, right? They're going to follow the main story, but they also want to branch off and do the other things. I wanted, direction, right? If I'm supposed to find some kind of resource, I would prefer to have the ability to say, all right, show me where there's, some of that resource or whatever. And I'm not talking about like localized scanners. I'm talking about like, okay, this thing requires a lot of aluminum. Point me in the direction of a lot of aluminum. The little orange signal thingies help with that, but for different things and sort of, and nah. So for me, I thought that the Atlas Pass vector and some of the other vectors that the game offered up were ways to go about kind of accomplishing like the side quests and figuring out other things throughout the world. And I'm still wondering if there's like some threshold of things like accessing the different races' relative monoliths might actually take you to some endpoint of that race's particular story, because each of them seems like it has a tale that's unfolding, and I'm wondering, it's got to have, those have to have a finite amount, right? So there has to be something at the end of the tale, but a lot of the other content kind of gets repetitive, but I'm digressing. I apologize. The Atlas Pass to me also seems particularly distracting for the third type of player, which is the individual. I think this one's the most common. The individual that plays it like Call of Duty, that's just going to go at the main story, just try to drive directly at like what exactly is there. And maybe, because I didn't follow the Atlas path, but then, I assume there are players who have done that, and they're at least not getting online and reporting having found Atlas passes. And judging by how much, a bunch of these gaming journalism websites have been trying to like just vomit content at people these last few days, I think that, if like someone working there has to be directly following the Atlas path and hasn't found the higher versions of the passes on there. And again, all of this comes from you have the Atlas path and you have the Atlas passes, and they're used functionally for two completely separate things. And the Atlas passes are presented to you as this closed door that you're given great imperative, or at least I was given great imperative to find a way to unlock, and on the other side of it is just more space junk. So, done a different way, it could be very nice. There could be something. Maybe on the space stations, there's a new type of environment, a new type of area, new types of items, patterns that you can't get other ways. But some direction. The fact that, from what I've read, again, big spoilers coming. The fact that you get the first Atlas Pass, like, in a very sort of strange way, but the second and third ones you just get by continually hitting the manufacturing centers and hoping that eventually they stop saying you already know this pattern that you got. If the higher level Atlas Passes actually unlocked cool new areas and weren't unlocked the same way as all of the other schematics, then there might be something there to that feature. So I think it was just not quite done baking, and so it shouldn't have made it in this version until it got a little bit more baked. That's my proposition.